Welcome. I am Terry Kay of the Jewish Grandparents Network. Thank you so much for joining us tonight for finding ways to reconnect with estranged children and grandchildren. We are honored that our presenter is Dr. Sue Cornbluth. A big thank you to Sarah Reed, our JGN colleague, who is helping facilitate. I want to just note that we are recording this session with audio only. Usually we do video and audio. Tonight, only audio. That is to protect your privacy. Many of you sent questions in advance, and Dr. Sue will get to as many of them as possible. I think we will not get to them all because there were so many, but please do go ahead and feel free to write other questions in chat, and I will share those with Dr. Sue as we go along. JGN, the Jewish Grandparents Network, is especially thrilled, delighted to co-present this event with Grandparents Academy. Grandparents Academy mission is to help grandparents grow meaningful relationships and rich legacies with their loved ones. And they offer amazing, rich resources and events and classes, and you've got to go to their Grandparents Week. So it's now my honor to introduce Aaron Larson, founder of Grandparents Academy, who will introduce Dr. Sue Cornbluth.
Thank you so much. It's such a pleasure to be here and to partner with JGN. And I love everything that you do and the way that you support grandparents and their families. About a year or so ago, I had the opportunity, as I was putting together a summit called Reconciliation Summit, to discover some amazing experts in the space of alienation. And Dr. Sue Cornbluth was one of those who spoke at the conference, and she was among the highest rated and most well received of the group because of, as you'll see, her style and depth of knowledge in this work and the results that she gets with the families and grandparents specifically, and parents as well, that she works with in high conflict situations. So, with that, I'm just going to read you a little bit about Dr. Sue Cornbluth, about her work and who she is. Dr. Sue Cornbluth is a president and owner of Dr. Sue and You. She's a certified parenting expert, author, coach, and thought leader with international recognition, specializing in high conflict divorce and parental and grandparent alienation situations. Dr. Sue has an extensive media career, offering educational tips on how to resolve relational conflicts, and she holds a doctoral degree in clinical psychology and has worked as a psychology professor at Temple University, and she has so much to share. So, with that, I'll turn it over to Dr. Sue.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much. What an honor to be here with all of you to discuss a very important topic that I know so many of you are struggling with. I want to thank, first of all, Terry Kay, and I want to thank Aaron Larson for bringing me here tonight to educate all of you. Their foundations are doing wonderful things to help grandparents with a issue that so many of you are struggling with. Now, before we get started, because we have a short time together tonight, and I want to try to get in as much as I can. And Terry's going to be asking the questions. I'm going to be talking about a lot of things. And you may hear some things tonight that you don't really like, but I find that things that we don't like are often the things that we need to do if we want to have a relationship with our grandchildren. So before we start, I want to know something from all of you, and that is, what is the one thing that you are struggling the most with in terms of your relationship with your adult child? And you could start writing them in the chat right now. While you're writing these, I'm going to start in on talking about what I came here tonight for. And that is to give you some tools and ideas of how to reconnect with your estranged children, because your children are the gatekeepers to your grandchildren. And a lot of grandparents will say, well, I just want to have a relationship with my children, well, with my grandchildren. And I'm here to tell you, you're not going to have a relationship just with your grandchildren if you cannot work out the situation between the two of you that is causing this rift. There's a rift that has been happening between you and your child. That is why you are in this estrangement. And in a minute, I'm going to talk to you about what estrangement is and what alienation is, because they are very different things. And it's important that you understand what this is, because if you don't understand what it is, you're not going to know how to make good efforts in order to get back into your children's lives, who will then eventually allow you to see your grandchildren. Now, in some instances, your grandchildren may be adults. Now, in those situations, all right, you may have a slight chance of getting to your grandchildren without going through your own children. But mostly you will have, if you have grandchildren that are young, you're going to have to learn how to communicate with your child in a different way than you ever have before. So I'm seeing all these things come in. Yes, and I see all this. We advise, yeah, there's a lot of questions, okay? So I'm going to first talk about what I think is most important, and then we will get to these questions. Now, first of all, let's talk about what estrangement is. Estrangement is an active choice by your child or by any person to pull away from you because there is a strained relationship which they no longer want to participate in. So this is actually when your child is pulling away from you because they feel that there is an issue between you and them that is not being resolved. Now, from doing this for such a long time and working with grandparents, the main issues that children tend to pull away from their parents from is their parents crossing boundaries, not making suggestions, being overbearing, being judgmental. And maybe in the beginning, things were not going very well between the two of you. But then over time, it started to become worse, and you weren't able to find ways to manage those conflicts that were between the two of you. And you started butting heads. Now, in other ways, your children may be pulling away from you, because I know some people have this issue, is that the person that they married is coming in between the relationship between you and your child. That happens a lot, but they are influenced by their wife or their husband or their partner, because that is who they are married to now. So if you butt heads with your daughter-in-law or your son-in-law, that is going to be a reason why your own child is not going to want you to see your grandchildren. But you're saying to yourself, that's not right. That's not fair. I am the grandparent. You're right. It's not fair. And I feel horrible for what you're going through, because this is devastating. You've waited your whole life to have these grandbabies and your grandchildren. But as I said in the beginning, the gatekeeper to open the door to your grandchildren is through your children. That is where the rift is. That is where the communication has broken down. And that is where the healing needs to take place. So when we're talking about parental alienation, That is very different than estrangement. In alienation, another party is involved that is taking away another person from you, okay, or taking away your child, and they are brainwashing that person, and you have done nothing wrong. You have made no mistakes. There has been no arguments. Nothing has occurred between the two of you. And they are just removing themselves from you because somebody else is telling them that you're not a good person. Alienation, the word, is very confusing to people. Most people and most grandparents in your situation, they are estranged from you. This is not alienation. They are making a choice to distance themselves from you. Now, they may have their spouse chirping in their ear, saying to you that they don't want you having connections with your grandchildren because you're overbearing, because you make suggestions, because you think you're always right, because you're judgmental. That may be occurring, but in probably 90% of the cases or 95% of the cases where you are not able to have a connection with your grandchildren, it is because your children have their own thoughts and feelings about what has transpired between you and them. And they probably have come to you many times to discuss these or asked you to change your ways. And they feel that you have not done that. What they are looking for from you, and I know this is hard to hear, but what they are looking for from you is validation, which is not always agreeing, which I will explain in a minute. They are looking for acceptance and they are looking for acknowledgement. What they are not looking for is this: for you to tell them or defend yourself and say you are right and they are wrong. Every time you get into that conflict with them, that is going to go nowhere. Look, you may be right. Okay, you really may be right. Or you may be standing in your own shoes and want to prove your point to them. It's not going to fly. Because what you're doing when you're doing that is invalidating their feelings about what has occurred between you and them. And once somebody feels invalidated, they do not want to carry on the situation. And now you're saying to yourself probably, but they're not validating me. They're not having empathy and compassion for me. You're right, they're not. Because in my model, which has helped lots of people reconnect, is that you are the parent and they are your child. And they are hurting. And it is your responsibility to help your child heal this relationship. That is what we do as parents. As parents, when we make a mistake and we hurt our children, we go to them and we talk to them and we apologize to them because that teaches them how to have empathy for others. But if you are wanting to stand your ground and you don't want to budge and you think that you're right and you're wrong and they're wrong, I want to ask you this right now. What is more important to you? Ask yourself this right now. Put it in the chat to me. What is more important to you? Being right in your feelings or having your children and your grandchildren back in your life? And every single grandparent that I talk to that reaches out to our practice for help tells me the same thing, that they want to have a relationship with their grandchildren. So if you want that, you're in the right place tonight, because I'm going to teach you a few things about how to get there. But that means oftentimes that you are going to have to swallow your pride. You're going to have to take accountability for things that you may feel that you did not do wrong. but you will, in the long run, have a connection with your children. Is it guaranteed? No. But if you do this, what I'm going to teach you in a little bit, with consistency over time, and you learn to show more empathy than judgment of them, they over time will break down and come forward. But if you keep that conflict up and you keep going back and forth at each other, that is not going to come. That is going to separate you more and more. What I believe is that conflict does not heal conflict. It doesn't. Compassion heals conflict. Always compassion heals conflict. And that means that you give your child empathy. What your child has experienced with you is their own experience, their own perspective. It is different than your perspective. And that is something that every grandparent needs to accept. Now, let me tell you what acceptance really is, because people get this confused all the time. Acceptance does not mean you have to like what's going on. Acceptance doesn't mean that you have to love what's going on. You don't even have to agree what's going on. But you have to go to a place to recognize within yourself and in your mindset that your child's perspective is different than yours. And if you want them to be in your life, then you have to accept them for who they are, for the decisions that they make, without trying to convince them that what you're saying is right and what they're saying is wrong. I remember a time with my own mother when I just had my first child, Jacob, who is now going to be 19. I can't even believe that's happening. But my mother would come over all the time in the beginning when I had him, and she wanted to do everything the way that she wanted to do it. And after a while, I started feeling very resentful of that, because I wanted to do it the way I wanted to. Of course, I wanted her help. I loved my mother. But instead of making suggestions to me, she was making demands and commands. I don't like demands and commands. Do you? So I had a talk with my mother, and I said, you know what would make me feel a lot better? If you would come in and make suggestions and use the word I'd like to suggest. And I am happy to say that 19 years later, from the time that my son was 6 months old, the only word my mother continues to use with me is I'd like to suggest. And it's really worked out well, because she heard me. Now, she didn't hear me the first time, the second time, the third time, the fourth time. It took me about 100 times to get her to do that. But if you keep giving, if your children keep giving you chances and chances and chances and ask you to do something for them and you're not doing it, then eventually they're going to cut themselves off from you, because they feel that you are not there for them. You're not seeing it through their eyes. I know everybody's saying I apologize several times, so I don't know what to do. And I completely understand it, but I bet you're not apologizing in a way that will open up the door. So just hang on. We are going to get to that a little bit later here in this session. There's different ways of apologizing, okay? That really opens up the door in a way that your estranged children can hear this. One of the things that estranged children report to me all the time when I ask them, are your parents seeing the grandchildren? And they say no. And I say, why aren't they seeing the grandchildren? And they're saying, because I don't want them to do the same things to me that they did to my children. I actually have a grandparent right now in the Jewish community that I'm working with. I've worked with her for 3 years. 3 years. It does take a long time. And she is now back in her children's life and in her grandchildren's life. And she thought that she would never, ever get that opportunity. She used to tell me this all the time. Dr. Sue, you can't do this. You can't help me do this. But the only reason that this has happened is not because of all my great tips and tools. It's because what she started to do for herself, that all of you need to do for yourself, starting tonight after this session. You need to start reconnecting with yourself and giving yourself self-compassion for the trauma that you have been through. What do I mean by that? I mean that you have been through so much yourself. You are hurting, you are angry, you are scared, and you are filled with anxiety. All those things that I named just there are preventing you from reconnecting with your child, who is the gatekeeper to your grandchildren. Because none of us can communicate in a positive way with anyone. None of us can put up positive vibes to anybody if we are in that negative state of being. We must reconnect with ourselves before we reconnect with our own children or even our grandchildren. We have to be in a place where we can say to ourselves when we are upset and we are struggling and we are feeling anxiety, that we are here for ourselves. When you are feeling anxious and you're feeling scared, I want you to tell yourself it's okay to feel that way. I want you to feel those feelings, and I want you to let them come in, think about them, and pass through you. Because hanging on to them is holding you back from opening up that communication with them. Once you can learn to give yourself self-compassion and comfort yourself for what you've gone through, then you will be able to give your child that empathy that they need from you to do that. And this all begins with self-awareness and self-talk that you do with yourself. Meaning, I'm really scared that I am never going to talk to my child again. Well, right there, I want to point out that what you're saying to yourself is so negative when you say the word never. I don't know if you're never going to talk to them again. Do you know that? You don't. And either do I. What I'd rather have you say to yourself is, there is a very good possibility that I can and I will reconnect if I learn proper communication, new breakthrough language, and I recognize that the work that I do on myself is what is going to open up the door here. I am going to learn acceptance. I am going to stop being judgmental. I'm going to make suggestions, and I'm not going to throw myself onto my kids. I have to give them boundaries. Now, many of you may have a different relationship with your parents growing up, where you listen to your parents all the time. What their religious beliefs were your religious beliefs. That is not the world that we are living in anymore. It's not. And we have to make changes, because we have to understand we are living in a world now where everybody is encouraged to have a voice. Everybody is encouraged to tell the other person, even their parents, how they feel. All right. And because of that, they are going to have their own feelings about you. And if you do not recognize them, you do not understand them, you do not validate them, you do not say to them, I understand what you're saying to me. What can I do to make this better between us? You deserve for me to give you what you are looking for. These are the kind of language that your children need to hear from you. Many of you may be saying right now, that's ridiculous, doctor. So you don't know what you're talking about. Some of these people are narcissistic and I can't change them anyway. And the spouses are too. You're exactly right. You cannot change their personalities. But what you can do and what you are in control of is you can change yourself. And when you change yourself in order to see how they are, you change your behavior. That's all you can do is change the way you react to them. You cannot change them. You can't. It's impossible. And so that's where this empathy comes in. This is where the compassion comes in, where you have to step into their shoes. They are not going to step into your shoes. They're just not going to do it. They won't. And if you're waiting for them to see your side of things, they are not going to do that. They are waiting for you to see their side. And I'm sorry. I mean, some of you are writing to me that my granddaughter, age 7, is so mean to me. Of course she is. She's doing exactly to you what she is being taught to do. She is a victim of whatever issues are going on between you and your daughter or the son-in-law, or what's going on between your son, your daughter-in-law. And your granddaughter is listening to all of this between them. She's picking up on this, or she's actually being told to be mean to you. But your granddaughter is not the one to be angry at. In fact, there's nobody to be angry at here. The goal is to learn how to repair these relationships and not become defensive with your daughter or your son. Now, what's the mindset that you need to be in to do this? And what is the language that you need to use to try to open up the doors to having a better relationship, or even just opening up the door? The first thing you need to realize, this is the most important thing, you have to break through your own defensiveness. When they say to you, you did this right, you did this wrong, you yelled at me too much, you don't let me breathe, you have to let that go. And even though you feel you may not have let them breathe, you may not be judgmental, this is what they're saying to you. There is no arguing with this. The minute you start arguing and start being defensive is the minute that this is never going to work. Your mindset is, what can I do to help my daughter or my son find, what can I say to them to open up the door so they will believe that I am validating them and acknowledging them? So the first thing that you can always do is say, I hear you. I understand what you're saying. But what you will never do is ever say, but. Don't ever use the word but when you are writing something to your children, when you are giving an apology. That minute that you use the word but is the minute that you become defensive, and they are going to say goodbye to you. If you said but to me, I wouldn't want to talk to you either, because you're making an excuse. And I guarantee you, if I talk to any one of you that is here today, and there's a lot of you here, and I really sat down with you and went into your history about what occurred between you and your children over the years, I could find at least one thing that occurred between you and your daughter or you and your son that could become a conflict. None of us are perfect parents. I'm certainly not. I can't believe you are either. Every single one of you, I could find that you made a mistake. And those mistakes, I know you didn't mean to do them, but they happened. And I know you didn't do them intentionally, but they don't believe that, because if they kept reoccurring over and over, they start to believe that this was intentional. And because of that, they have their own story in their mind about what they were feeling. And they believe that you did not show up for them in the way that they wanted you to show up. And they are holding this grudge. I mean, that's what this is really about. They're holding a grudge, and probably many of their thoughts are realistic. So your mindset has to be this: I am letting go of the anger. I am letting go of defensiveness. I am not going to meet them with conflict. I am not going to justify my reactions to them. What I'm going to do is give them compassion. I'm going to give them understanding. I'm going to give them acceptance. I'm going to work on myself and let go of the pain that is inside of me, because I know that they are not trying to hurt me. They are in enormous pain themselves. Some of your children may not be even speaking to you because their spouse doesn't want them to. Think about how hard that is on your child. Think about that for a minute. They have to do what their spouse is asking them to do, or they will not have a marriage anymore. Understand that and know that you need to become a solution to this problem, not a hindrance because you can't see your grandchildren. You want to see your grandchildren, start helping out your children in ways where they feel that they are being heard by you. Breakthrough language. Let's talk about that for a minute. Language to open up when you can't get through to your children at all. Now, everybody says, Dr. Sue, I have written the most beautiful letters. I've apologized. I've taken responsibility. And then I say, please send me the letters that you've written. I really want to see them. And then you send them to me. And then I say to myself, no, what you wrote was all about you, and you didn't write anything about them. You're writing that you're upset. You're writing, why are you doing this to me? That's going to get you blocked. That's going to get you removed. And that is going to get you nowhere. What will get you somewhere is this. First of all, if you're in a place right now where you're just in the beginning of conflict, this is what I suggest you do. You start out by saying, I've done a lot of thinking about the way that I have handled things with you, and I understand that you are angry with me, and that I just want you to know that it's taken me such a long time to understand where you are, and that's on me. That's not on you. And I know that I've broken boundaries, and I'm aware that I have overstepped and that I can be overbearing at times. And I am sorry that I caused you pain. I am sorry that I caused you pain. There is no buts. There is no, let me tell you my side. There is no, let me tell you how much you are hurting me. If that is the case, that you are hurting so much, because I know you are, I know you're feeling broken right now. Your children are not the people to tell that to. That can be told to a therapist, a coach, a friend, a good family member, a rabbi, whoever it is, but not to your kids. They will not and cannot see your side. Let me say that again. They will not and they cannot see your side. Maybe one day they will when you see theirs, but they will not budge on seeing your side. And the only way that my grandparents that I've worked with get reconnected with their grandchildren is by learning breakthrough language, learning how to reach out to them, working on themselves, and really authentically seeing their children's pain. Because I know what is happening. What's happening is you want this relationship back with your children so much, but just wanting it back isn't going to help it. You have to do the work to get that back. And let me say this too. Recreating a connection to your children is not going to be the same connection you had before. The connection that you had before wasn't healthy. That's why you're in this to begin with. The connection that you are going to make going forward is going to be healthier. It's going to be different. There's going to be boundaries. And that is something that you're going to have to respect with them. They are not your little boys and girls anymore. They are adults that have their own minds and they want to be respected. But you're saying to yourself, no, I'm the one that has to be respected. And I'm telling you, that's not going to happen until you start giving them respect. Once you can earn their respect back, they will start respecting you. I know this seems so backwards, but these situations are so filled with high conflict that normal ways of resolving conflict do not work here. They don't. So people are asking me, well, I have to walk on eggshells. Great question. Yep. You are going to have to walk on eggshells and walk on water for a while until they begin to trust in you that what you are trying to show them is real and not just a way to manipulate them to get back in your life. Now, how do you do that? By being consistent over and over in the texts or the emails that you are sending to them. And every single time it has to be, I understand where you're coming from. I hear you. What can I do to help you? You as the parent needs to take responsibility. If they say to you, you know what, Mom, or you know what, Dad, you really don't talk to me very nicely and I don't like it. And your response is, what are you talking about? I talk to you nice all the time. You need to respect me. Cut that out right now, because that's not going to get you anywhere. Your response back is, I hear you. I'm sorry, I did not hear you before. I was too wrapped up in myself and my needs and what I wanted. And now I want to really be there for you and stand by you and do the things that you need me to do to be a part of your life. What you are doing right now is you are establishing a very low ground where they will start to believe that you really are hearing them, that you change. But this does not happen from one letter or two letters or three letters or four letters. This may take up to 100 letters. I'm not kidding. But
Dr. Sue, excuse me,
yeah.
On this note of 100 letters, several people are writing, they've blocked me.
Oh.
Or changed my email. So how do you how do you get that 100 letters to them?
Oh, well, thank you for that. Now, first, I want you to ask yourself why you are blocked. Okay, they have probably blocked you because they feel as though they have given you chance after chance and you have not given them the responses that they are longing for. And they believe that you are not seeing things from their perspective. Now, if you're blocked, this is what I'm going to tell you. Sometimes you may be blocked and sometimes you're not blocked. Overall, your children will reopen the blockings. They will reopen from time to time to see if you're still trying to reach out to them. Otherwise, if you are blocked, there are different ways to find addresses. You can send snail mail. I mean, sometimes people have to hire a private detective. There is an app called Truth Finder where you can find out where your children are, what their addresses are, things like that. But you can't just get yourself unblocked. But what I'm saying is, if you go about it in a way where you are consistent and you keep putting that out, then just by the natural grace of God or the universe or whatever it is that you believe in, things start to heal. Most times people tell me they're blocked, but they still have another email. Or they know somebody that has their number or something like that. There's always a way to find that. I don't want you to worry so much about the fact that you're blocked. I want you to work on yourself over time to learn how to get to them. Somebody said they said snail mail and she says return to sender. So guess what that's telling me? She's not ready to hear from you. And the issues between the two of you are so deep that you're writing her things or you're sending things to her or things happened in the past that we're not getting through to her. I don't know everybody's specific situation on here, so I can't answer in that way, but that's what I can tell you. If you are blocked, then there is some really deep stuff going on that has not been talked about, or it has been brought up to you and you're ignoring it. That's what I can say to you on that. Do we have any more questions? I see like millions of them here.
There are millions.
I know.
So why don't you continue, and you'll tell me when there's a natural pause, and then I'll share some of the questions we've been getting.
Okay. So, you know, I've gone over a lot of what I feel is so important in trying to create a new opening with your child. There are no cookie cutter responses. Everybody's case is different. And if anybody gives you a cookie cutter response, then that's not going to work. Okay. Tonight on this presentation, I'm trying to give you a general way of looking at this situation in a different way to try to break through. I don't know what your particular case is, but what I do know, and what I know opens up doors, is you doing what I said, recognizing that there are big conflicts between the two of you. I would even encourage you getting out a notebook and writing down all the things that you can think of in saying it, in coming up with conflicts that have happened between the two of you. I always ask my clients at the beginning, what has your child already told you or shared with you that they have said that has really irritated and bothered them? That's where you want to begin, because those are the instances that are causing this friction between the two of you. What you don't want to do is you don't want to tell them that their spouse is influencing them to do this. What you don't want to do is badmouth their spouse. What you don't want to do is badmouth your grandchildren. You don't want to do anything like that, because that's just going to push you further away from them. Everything is about changing your language and understanding that there are conflicts between the two of you that are blocking this from going further. And you always want to validate them, acknowledge them, and accept them. You don't have to like what they're doing, but you have to accept it. And because I asked you, do you want to be in their life, or do you want to keep arguing and proving your point? That's how this comes to a fruition. There are no, if there's professionals out there telling you to write a standard letter or telling you this is going to work or that's going to work, it will not work. It won't. What works is going through your history with a professional that is objective, finding and pinpointing. This is what we do in our practice. We pinpoint all the areas that you've had conflict with your child over the years. But when you start with us, you may not have or know where those areas are. How could you? You're hurting so much that you cannot be objective in your own situation in terms of what is going on. You need an outsider to help you do that. Once you can do that, then you can go to them and explain some things to them, but not from a perspective of, I did this and you should forgive me. Every action that we do in life towards somebody else that hurts them, we have accountability for it. We may not have meant to hurt them, but if they tell me that it does hurt them, then I have what I feel is the right to apologize and have accountability for what went on here. An amends letter, you can't just write one letter. You have to know what you're trying to make amends for without using in that letter one time you did this, or you did that, or you. When you say the word you, you're blaming them. When you use the word I, it's a whole different ball game. When we use the word I, that's taking accountability. When you use the word you, that's shifting to blame. You may be having a lot of people around you, like your friends, telling you you did nothing wrong. That's not true, probably. And we all go to our friends because we want somebody around us to tell us that we did right, that we are a good mother, or we are a good father. This has nothing to do with being a good parent or not a good parent. This has to do with not knowing how to solve relational conflicts between human beings. This is also about parents feeling as though they know more or know better than their children. That doesn't go over well with your child. Your children are the parents of your grandchildren. So if you want a new relationship or any kind of relationship with your children, with your grandchildren, you need to start healing that with your own children. There is no other way that I see to get to your grandchildren. It has never worked in any other way. And I've reunited hundreds of grandparents with their grandchildren. I've reunited hundreds of divorced parents with their children in the same way. Understanding your role in this and then going to them and sharing it with them. That's what they need. That's what they feel they deserve. And that's what they hear.
Dr. Sue, can I jump in?
Sure.
Because there's a short question, but several people have asked a variation of it. What legal recourse do they have, if any?
Yeah, I'm really glad people asked that. So you're talking to a person that isn't very fond of the legal system. And I'm going to tell you why. Okay. And, this is really interesting because I had put out a question on my Facebook page over the weekend. How is family court helping you? And I got more responses than I ever did in my life, like hundreds and hundreds of responses. And everything said the same thing. Family court does not help. What it does is create more conflict. And I agree with that. And let me tell you, grandparents, what happens when you try to go to court to get your grandparents' rights, that upsets your kids even more. It does, because they're saying to themselves, we are the gatekeepers of our grandchildren. And now here you go, forcing yourself on us so you can have a relationship with them. It never works. I don't believe in court. Sometimes I do, only when we're dealing with the most full-blown narcissistic, sociopathic human beings in the world, and we can't find other ways to get through. But going to court and trying to show your authority even more over your children, that is not going to help. I suggest being kind, being empathetic, working on your issues and finding out where this break is, and then learning how to hear your children and give responses to them that will open the door.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Sue. Many questions about mental illness.
What about it?
My son has dealing with, here's a question that we got in advance.
Okay.
I've yet to find anyone who's dealing with alienation that is due to mental illness. My son was diagnosed with OCD at age 15, etc.
Well, look, I think when we are dealing with this kind of population, that for me, a lot of this is unresolved trauma. It doesn't always mean that somebody has a mental illness. Now, many people that are participating in alienation or are encouraging your daughter or your son to keep your grandchildren away from you, they are suffering from personality disorders. And the biggest one that these people tend to suffer from is narcissism or borderline personality disorder. You can look that up. But these are all about interpersonal relationships where they did not get their needs met And so therefore they don't know how to be in healthy relationships. As I said at the beginning, you cannot change these human beings. In fact, I was told very early on in my training that you cannot treat individuals that have personality disorders. That is why I am talking to you and saying that what you need to do is change your behavior. You can never change a personality disorder person's behavior. They are always right, because at the end of the day, their self-esteem is as small as the dot at the end of the sentence. So they always have to prove that they're better than everyone else to feel good. Don't even go down that road of engaging with those kinds of people. You cannot win. You kill them with kindness.
Thank you. We have several questions about what to do if the relationship continues with the other grandparent, the grandfather or the grandmother, but not, you know what I mean, not the partner, in how to handle that, the incredible strife it causes at home between the two of them.
So are you asking me when one of the sets of grandparents has a relation? What are you asking me?
The grandpa is okay, but the grandma is not.
So the grandpa's allowed to see the grandchildren, but the grandmother is not. Okay, very good. I just wanted to be clear before I answered that. That does happen sometimes. So you need to ask yourself this. Why are they allowing the grandfather to come and not me? What are the issues that are going on between me and my daughter, or me and my son, why they don't want me there? Is it because they see me as too controlling? Is it because the grandfather is less controlling and he's more relaxed and he's seen as the play party and he's seen as the fun person? You have to determine what it is that they are upset about you with, and then find ways to approach them about that and apologize. Let me go into this for a second, Terry, because I just had a case like this, okay? So the mother was not allowed to see the grandchildren at all, but the grandfather was allowed. Now, I was working with the grandmother, and the reason that she was not allowed to see her grandchildren was because every time that she went into their home, she was forcing on them her own religious beliefs. But the grandfather or the father wasn't doing it. And so I kept saying that over and over to her, I think there's another problem here. And we finally got to that. And then it ended up, so we kept writing to them and saying, I noticed that there's an issue here, and maybe I've overstepped boundaries where I've tried to force my religion onto you, and you've told me many times not to do that. And finally, like after the fifth time of writing, the son called her and said, it's taken me a really long time to tell you this, but now that you understand why we don't want you here, because we don't want you influencing our children in that way, do you think that you can come here and not do that? And that changed the whole dynamic, and now she's seeing her grandchildren.
Thank you. Here's a question. Once the grandkids are a bit more grown up, so somebody wrote in about the granddaughter's oldest granddaughter went to college last year, and I've tried to connect with her with care packages.
Good.
But it seems we take 2 steps forward and 1 back. Sometimes they'll hear, sometimes they won't. What are your thoughts about trying to establish an independent relationship with older grandchildren?
Because I love this question. And I want whoever asked this to know that keep sending those packages, okay? Keep those gifts up, keep the cards up. You know what these kids tell me is that the only reason that they ever reconnect with some of their estranged grandparents or parents is because they never gave up on them. So I would keep those things coming. Why is it going in a roller coaster? Because they don't trust. Remember, they have been told probably a lot of negative things about you over the years. So they're like confused. Are these people really nice? They are sending me all of these gifts, but I still have this loyalty to my parents. So I don't know if I can cross over this boundary and really get to know you, because my parents may be really angry about that. So that's what's holding her in this roller coaster defense. But keep doing it. Don't push. Don't be upset if you don't get a thank you. This is not about getting thank yous. This is about keep showing up for them.
Dr. Sue, how do you, a question in chat, how do you feel about showing up at public events where you might get where you will get a glimpse of your grandchildren, like a school concert?
Okay, so again, this question is really specific to people's circumstances and where they are in the relationship with their own children. Now, if you have been told over and over to not show up, you do not show up. If you have not been told if you have not been told not to show up, please feel free to grow, but do not make a spectacle of yourself. Sit far away and watch from a distance. The minute that you make yourself a spectacle and you go up to your grandchild or you go up to your daughter and son-in-law, that is causing conflict. That's what I would say on that one.
Should I use a relative as a messenger? We have had several questions like this.
Yeah, I saw that a
them to
lot.
unlock me. Yeah, yes. Okay.
All right, so this is difficult, and a lot of people ask me this all the time. When you are sending a messenger, that can also make them very upset. Why? Because sending a messenger means that you have now brought their issues to another person and got them involved, and that does not make them feel as though they can trust you. And so I do not agree with that, unless there is someone that is very, very close with them and can maybe talk to them and tell them, you know, I've been talking to your mother or your father, and I really can see that they've changed. And you have to change, by the way. You can't just say that. You really have to change. And, you know, maybe you could think about having a relationship with them or some kind of relationship with them. And let me say this, Terry. This is one thing that I skipped over, which is like the most important thing, because I have so much to say and I'm trying to get it in within the hour and 15 minutes. But this is all about this one thing, and this is what it comes down to. If you want to reconnect with your children, which are going to lead you to your grandchildren, you must do it on their terms, not your terms. That is what they want. That is what they tell me all the time. And that is what is going to get you back into their life. Write this down, everybody. I have to do this on their terms, not mine. I wanted to make that clear.
This is interesting. You tell us to keep trying to get in touch, but isn't it more respectful to honor their no contact request?
Yeah, in a friendship. This isn't a friendship. This is your child. So sure, you have a friendship with somebody and they ask you to have space. Absolutely. Go ahead, give space. Sometimes that helps, sometimes it doesn't. These are your children. When you give more space to your children in an alienation or an estranged situation, what that does is separate you more and more over time. And what that also does is tell them that you don't care. So you do need to reach out to them sporadically. Not every day, not every week, maybe 2 times a month to start in the beginning, just asking how they are. How is everybody doing? And saying to them that I know that I've hurt you and I am always here. When it comes to getting back with your children or getting to your grandchildren, I'm not about space. Space does not help these situations. It hurts it.
May I pause for a moment to say we are at 8 o'clock, which
Yeah.
is our scheduled time. I did in advance, so if any of you have to drop off the call, we understand it, and if we thank you very much for sharing your time with us and for your participation. I did in advance ask Dr. Sue if she would agree to stay on for about another 10 minutes beyond our time, and she graciously did so. So we do invite you to stay on, and may I fire off a few more questions to you,
I
Dr.
mean,
Sue?
Terry, there are so many here, you know, it breaks my heart because it shows me how much everybody is suffering and they don't know what to do. And so let me just say this. I am not going to be able to answer all your questions tonight. I'm not. I wish I could. I wish I could spend 4 days with you because it would take at least that amount of time to go over all of this. Tonight is just a touch on what are some things that you can do to help move this process forward. But when you get off this call tonight, I want you to just sit with yourself and try to process a lot of what I've said tonight. And you may be mad about some things that I'm saying, and that's okay. That means that you do need to do some more work on yourself in getting in touch with yourself. A lot of times you don't want to do things because you're so afraid that you're at fault, or you don't want to look at the mistakes that you made. Looking at ourselves in the mirror and looking at some mistakes that we made is one of the hardest things. None of us want to feel like we failed or let our children down, but failure is a part of growth. And what I can tell you is this didn't happen to you, it happened for you. And it happened for you so you can go about and change your life in a different way so that you can have better relationships with your children, your grandchildren, and every other person in your life. But it starts with you. And this isn't about being a good mother or a good father or a good grandparent. We all make mistakes. Your children are pointing out mistakes to you that hurt them. Don't look at it as blame, please.
So that leads me to ask, how do we may have to come to terms with our situation. How do we get on with life without the grief and the suffering, if at all?
Yeah, look, this is a particular kind of loss. It is called an ambiguous loss. When a child dies, which is horrific, there's finality to that. And you grieve it. And you don't ever get over it. You don't ever get over a death. But what everybody here tonight is experiencing is an ambiguous loss, which means that the people that you love are still out there. And they psychologically live on within your mind, but you can't physically get to them. And this is one of the most difficult pains in life to deal with. That is why these steps that I'm talking about help open up the door, because they need to hear what they want to hear to come forward. And that's how you get to them psychologically and physically, by meeting their psychological needs. You know, I grew up in a family where I didn't get all my needs met. And I went to my parents a lot of times because I wanted my voice to be heard to them. And it wasn't always heard. It wasn't. And I held a lot of stuff in, and I handled a lot of different things in my life in ways I probably wouldn't have if I felt like I had a voice. And I kept going to my parents over and over, saying to them, I wish you would have done something different. I wish you would have listened to me more. I wish you would have done this. I wish you would have done that. It took my mother to the age of 77 to finally come to me after all those years and say to me, we could have done better for you. 77 years old. That changed my life so much. I can't tell you. and put into words where my relationship is with my mother now. It is wonderful. It is open. We laugh, we cry, we talk about things because she acknowledged my pain. In those 3 words, we could have done better. This is what your children need to hear. I never was fully estranged from my mother. I never cut her off. That's me. Because in all the midst of what my parents did, they did some very good things. They were good enough parents. That's all we need in life. And they taught me how to have empathy for others. But I carried that pain with me for so much of my life. And then at 77, finally, after years of coming to her and explaining, she thought about it and she said, I could have done a lot better. It changes everything.
So, Dr. Sue, our guests tonight have had an hour and 5 minutes or so of sort of smart ideas and revelations, and now they have to go back to real life. So there are a number of questions about now what. Who do we turn to? Do you offer resources on your page? I'm going to send, by the way, everybody, I'm going to send you a follow-up.
Look, of course I do. I mean, this is all we do, right? But Terry, I didn't get back to the thing. You did ask me, like, I got off on my own stuff because I thought it would help. But how do you go on with life? You go on with life because you have to. You do get up every morning, but you keep working every day. You keep working on yourself to find out where are these disconnections with my children. But you don't shut your life down. Go out and enjoy your life. Spend time with friends. Go to places. You don't have to keep punishing yourself just because they're punishing you. Don't punish them back either, but keep on living your life. That will get you to better places. Okay. So yes, of course, we have a lot of services. We work one-on-one with grandparents. We've had support groups for grandparents. We've done a lot of things. What my practice does is we work one-on-one coaching with you and teach you a lot of the skills that I'm talking about tonight to help you get reconnected with your children and your grandparents. I have tons of resources on my website, and I promise we will get back to every single one of you. There's a lot of people in here. Just give us some time to do this. I think I'm probably one of the only experts that really does get back to you and does spend time with you and talk to you to see if we're a fit for each other. I think that's really important. I can type. Should I type my website here? They asked.
Yeah, we just did actually.
You did?
Okay. Sarah did, but you can type it again. Go for it. Yeah.
And this is our phone number.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that's type important it in. Too. 486-114. Isn't that funny? We don't even know our own phone number. Okay. No, but I send a direct message. I want to send it to everyone. How do I do that?
You go to meeting group chat.
There it is.
Very top.
Okay. Just like 486-1147. Got it. Okay.
215-486-1147. Okay, perfect. And then a slightly more sensitive question, and then I will turn it back to Erin to thank you and to sign off. We often hear from grandparents that they are on a limited income. They may be on veterans benefits. They may, have Medicare and not have the resources to really go to a full-blown therapist or a counselor. Do you have any guidance along those lines?
Well, yeah, I mean, I think we really also, my practice works with different pricing range depending on what services that you do want. I also have a foundation that we've started where we are getting money and donations to help people that don't have resources to go to. And the best way is to go on my website and you can fill out a form. It goes right to us and we will get back to you.
I'm sending you that to all our friends here tonight. I'm following up with you tomorrow morning with the recording and with the link to connect to Dr. Sue. I also put in chat the link to Grandparents Academy. They also have a ton of resources on the
Yes.
subject, and Dr. Sue presents courses for them. And with that, I am going to hand it over. Thank you, Dr. Sue. Aaron Larson has a rather important announcement that he would like to share with us all. Over to you. Thank you, Aaron.
Yeah, thanks so much. And Dr. Sue, every time I listen to you, you just there's new insights, and I just love the way that you just present this information. Like I kind of warned people, you warned them too. There's going to be some things that might grind on you a little bit, but I will tell everybody who's listening, it comes from such a great place of love. Dr. Sue has a huge heart, and she has an amazing knowledge to help you work through this conflict. We have a lot of experts, other than Dr. Sue will be presenting at the upcoming Reconciliation Summit that we have in June. She's one of the presenters. We have a few others. This is an issue that is really becoming an epidemic, and it's multifaceted. There are a lot of different, you can't possibly fit it into 1 hour, 5 hours. It takes a lot of time. So we have a lot of different perspectives that we're inviting as part of this Reconciliation Summit. It's a free event. So, it doesn't matter what income you have. It's just meant to be a resource for grandparents who are experiencing estrangement or alienation. So you can find that at grandparentsacademy.com/reconcile. I'll put that in the chat right here. I know others have put this in the chat too. And there's Dr. Sue's link too. So highly recommend Dr. Sue. Connect with her. And she is so right. We had Reconciliation Summit last year. So many people wanted to connect with Dr. Sue. I mean, lots of people. She responded to every one of them, and everyone was so impressed. So give her a little time to respond, but she will connect with you. So thank you so much, Dr. Sue. You're incredible. And JGN as well. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Aaron, and to all our friends and colleagues. Thank you very much for joining us tonight. Again, you will hear from us tomorrow with the audio recording and some key links. And we thank you very much for joining us tonight, and we wish you all the very, very best.